Elliott Hord, how you doing?
What's going on, Omar? I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. Good to see you. How's everything been?
Good, man. Just enjoying the San Diego weather. It's a little warmer over here, so nice change of pace from Fresno.
Yeah, if anybody who's watching this who would watch the Matt Sheldon podcast, you know that we were in the backyard, but we did it a little bit more intently to do it during the day. So we actually had some sun and not in the shadows like last time. So Coach of the Year, right? I mean, a lot of people maybe who haven't heard of you or like maybe known who you are. You played in the USL. You and I were at Davis together. So that is how we both know each other. But you had a nice little career in the USL. But now you're in coaching, Coach of the Year this season. How was that?
Yeah, man. It was. I honestly wasn't expecting to get that award. It was a bit of a surprise. And you know, last year I started as a head coach with a team called College of Sequoias, which is in Visalia, California. We're a junior college. I'm working with the women's program. So my first year, you know, was hard. I came in late and just kind of trying to learn the ropes and assemble a team. And, you know, we struggled quite a bit, but this season, some more experience, really having a chance to recruit helped a lot. And we were able to turn the season around, and it was a lot of fun, man. It was a project, and it was definitely challenging, but it was really cool to see how fast myself and the rest of the staff and the players, the hard work that we put in, really propelled us into the season.
Yeah. So what kind of player are you looking for? So I know sometimes when we have people on, even myself as a goalkeeper coach, I have an eye for sometimes maybe players that play similar to me or see the game similar to me. And I feel like maybe as a head coach now, you played right back, right, for most of your pro career.
Yeah, my pro career I played right back, you know, wing back, at times some outside mid, but you know, growing up I was actually trained as like a center mid, sometimes the 6, but more of like an 8 or a 10. And then when I played college at UC Davis, the head coach Dwayne started putting me at right wing, and then he started putting me at right back, and I was so opposed and I was so mad that he was doing it. But eventually, hey, you know, credit to him, he saw it first. So it was pretty cool to see how it just the transformation. You gotta the one just takeaway from that is just being open minded to
you adjust.
Yeah, you have to adjust.
Yeah. I mean, so you as a player, if I remember correctly, I mean, you're somebody who was very, I would say tactical, but somebody who understood the game a little bit. You recognize the spacing, you recognize where my touch needs to be taken so that I can, you know, have a pass open for me here. Do you feel like you look for players who kind of see the game the same way that you do, or you've kind of evolved to say, look, this is what the team needs in this position, let me just kind of adjust to that?
Yeah, so what's unique about the junior college environment is, yeah, of course you want players to fit a certain kind of, you know, role and ability, but the reality of my environment, at least at the junior college level, is you're going to try to find the players that are just wanting to play. And yeah, I would love to have, you know, those players that resemble a certain way, or can we need a midfielder? We lost a midfielder. It's like, really for us is like, who wants to play at the junior college level and who can actually contribute and be an impact player. So our environment's different than maybe like a 4-year level where you're having scholarships or you have ability to kind of really sell them on it. And there's obviously certain recruiting things that we're doing to bring players in, but ultimately our biggest challenge is making sure we're consistently bringing players in and making sure girls want to play. So yeah, it's kind of a weird dynamic, but it's also unique in that way.
Yeah. And before Davis, were you recruited heavily, you think?
Before I went to Davis? Yeah, so at Davis I mean, there was interest. I know Cal Poly was really interested, UNLV, UW had some interest. The one that I was kind of shocked by was Georgetown. They actually had seen me in a game at a showcase, and the coach loved me. It's just at the time my grades were fine. It was above like 3.0, and my SAT, I think the SAT score, they wanted it higher. And, you know, I just, in high school, I wouldn't say I was a bad student, but I definitely wasn't, I think the Georgetown, the honorary, you know, honor roll, whatever it is. So I think that one slipped through the crack. But, I mean, there was definitely interest from teams. I wasn't heavily scouted. I was very proactive in my recruiting process. It wasn't like they were just trying to reach out to me. Like, you have to be proactive in that process.
Yeah, were you looking at teams that or schools that fit your style of play? So I feel like the conversation nowadays where we see young players, me mainly from the goalkeeping side, we get players who say, look, I want to go to this school and I want to compete for the position. And sometimes they look at a goalkeeper who maybe in the national team pool who's a sophomore, and you look at it and you say, look, yeah, do you want to go there? Is the training good? Sure. Is the academics good? Sure. But if you want to play, that might not be the best position for you to go and sit for 2 years. But for you, were you even considering like, yeah, maybe I need to go to a school that I could play more or that fits my style?
Yeah, I really wasn't looking at the style. I think it was more, for me, it was like who was really showing interest, like who really wanted me. And at the end of the day, as a player, you always feel good about people wanting you, right? And so for me, that was a key thing. Davis showed a ton of interest. He really liked me. The visit was great, and I had done some other visits, and there was interest there, but it really seemed like they were really invested in me and wanted me. So for me, that was a selling point. Went to the campus. It was just a whole different environment I've never seen in my life. And, what's crazy is in high school, I didn't even know, like, the value and the kind of, perception of the UC system.
Yeah.
And I was telling someone, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to UC Davis. They're like, you're going to UC Davis? Like, I was like, what are your grades? I'm like, yeah, they're fine. It's like, dude, you're going to, like, a really, really hard school. I was like, really? And then I got there and I was like, oh man, I am.
It's fun. Do you remember like the recruiting process? I'll tell you mine. So I haven't told this story at all really, or like remember it really too fondly, or look back on it fondly. It was a tough recruiting process, but early on I was looked at by like Stanford, UCLA, but I remember I got my first, I got like my first like packages in the mail, or like letters in the mail, and my coach sat me down in high school, was like, hey, UCLA just reached out, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Talked to one of my teammates, I got the same exact letter, and it was just like changing the name, and it was the exact same text. So right away you're just like, shit, that's not what I expected. I thought I was actually being recruited by these guys heavily. Right. And then obviously I was playing with the Galaxy Academy, so I had that setup going, and there was people who were telling me, oh, like this school's interested in you, they want to come see you at a showcase. And I had kind of messed up, I think it was the time, messed up my shoulder. So I was pushed, like probably it was, let's say September, and we had the showcase around December. So I was like mid-September, so about a month and a half to get back into it. And I was pushing myself to get ready for the showcase. And I got back a few days before that, and physically I was out of shape, but I was like, you know what, these guys are coming to see me, it's going to be exciting, it's going to be amazing. But then I think within that process, you start trying things that aren't within your character as a player, or you start doing things that you want to put it on camera when the situation of the game is not really calling for that. And I remember playing in a game, and I was telling myself, look, any cross that comes in, whether it's in my 6-yard box, whether it's whatever it is, I'm going to expand my range. I'm going to come get it. Any shot that comes in, I'm going to do my best to make it theatrical, do as best as I can. Showtime, yeah. And it was that like trying to just for that moment and trying to do something spectacular that really screwed me up and created more obstacles for me. And I remember there's a cross that came in, and it was going to the far post, and we just saw it with Lloris today. It was like going to the far post, clearly going out of bounds, and I like ran it all the way down. The entire team was already almost jogging back to their side, and I like tapped it and I put it out for a corner, and I'm like on the ground getting up, and I look at my mom and my dad who were sitting there watching like, what are you doing? And I got up and I'm like, bro, I'm a superstar and all that. And then so we're up like 4-0, and then second half, I kid you not, the other team, it was IMG Academy, but they weren't very good. The guy got the ball, he turned at midfield, and I'm like, oh shit, I am 25 yards, 30 yards off my goal. And this dude turns and blasts it over my head. He scores, and we ended up winning 5-1. But again, all the coaches that I remember watching, like Stanford, UCLA, right, Berkeley, all these guys that were there, I remember seeing them get up off their chair and leave right after. Right. And I'm like, dude, all of that shit, all the hard work, everything that I ever wanted to do, now all of a sudden is just completely like gone. And so after that, I had, I think, only UC Irvine, who was like they were considering me, they were a little interested, but nothing too crazy. And then UC Irvine, I remember I called them and I said, hey, can I come in to, meet the coach? I go in to meet the coach, I sit down with him. First thing he says is like, I see my name on the board, and I'm like number 3 on the goalkeeper like depth chart of like who they want to get. Uh-huh. And he was like, Omar, look, we like you, but we just think you're too soft. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, no, seriously, like we watch you play, we just think you're too nice. Like you don't really have much personality out there. You're just somebody who's kind of a pushover, and you're just too nice. So we don't really see you being our number 1 guy right now. And like 2 weeks later, I sent him an email. I was like, guys, whatever it is that I can do to get into the school, I don't care. And they're like, we have no money. They're giving me all the reasons. Like, you go through a breakup, they're giving you all the reasons to just not even want to be a part of the relationship.
Of course.
And I was like, I don't care. I don't need money. Just get me into the school. They're like, academics is pretty tough right now. And I was just like, bro, I'm literally selling myself to you guys. Just let me come. And then like 2 weeks later, one of my friends was like, dude, I'm going to Davis and I'm doing a camp there. You should come. And I was like, dude, I don't know. I'm probably going to UC Irvine. We'll see. And he's like, just come. And I go. And at that point, Irvine texted me and they were like, hey, we have no money for you. We can't get you in the school. Sorry. It was like my last option was Davis, like my senior year. And I'm in like the car. My mom was like, we did like a little prayer. She was like, I hope to God that like this is a situation for you. And God, if this is a situation for Omar to go to Davis, like please have him do well. Did well. And then like a week later they called me and they said, hey, we want you to come to Davis. But it was just like, at that point, like you're saying, it's like you kind of just go with whoever gives you the offer at some points. And you kind of just say, I don't know anything about Davis either. They said, yeah, it's a UC school. I was like, okay, like whatever. And I get there and I'm like realizing, oh crap, okay, academics are pretty hard here.
Right.
So I went like, instead of going to biochemistry, which was what I was thinking at one point,
Yeah, I remember you studying. You didn't do too well.
I switched to communications after my first class. I said, look, this is not for me. Biochemistry is a little bit too difficult. I think my ideas in my mind are best used on the soccer field. So let me keep it rested.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But no, I think I tell that whole story because like at some points coaches will like probe you and say, hey, this is where we want you to come. And then at some points they just say, we're not interested anymore. We found somebody else. You dragged your feet. You weren't proactive. And as soon as you're not proactive, someone steps in and takes that position. So like you're saying, you kind of have to be proactive, but also to try to find a school that is going to fit your style.
Yeah, and I think people are more really involved in their recruiting process more now than I think before, is in like their awareness of things to look for and what questions to ask, and the research that I think goes into the recruiting process. I follow a couple of people on Twitter, and they're always constantly talking about like questions to ask coaches and the recruiting process and what to look for. And I did some research on some basic things, but really it came down to like obviously location and the academics is important. Yeah. But the one thing I feel like on every player's mind is like the level of play, and then the soccer. Like that's obviously our priority, and I understand those things are priorities, but I do think that the value of the education and making sure it's conducive to what you want to go into. And if they have a good program, great. If it's not the strongest program, that's okay too. I mean, just make sure that it's the right fit for you. But I do think that the priority, the game changer for me at least, was the level of interest, because we all like being wanted. So
yeah. And what were some of your insecurities as a player not going into college, but like maybe in the recruiting process? I think we always try to compare, whether it's our teammates or in the academy system, we're comparing ourselves to guys we play against. So like, were there any things that you noticed about yourself and you said, damn, I'm really struggling in these areas? And vice versa. You can answer that first. Second part would be like, what were some things that you said, damn, I could really hang my head on these parts of my game that I think coaches are really looking at?
Yeah, so like I think one of the things that I had struggled with at times was just like the physicality, the physical part of the game. I wasn't the strongest player, and I tried to use my technical ability and my ability to read the game. So I think that's one thing that, and when I got to college, I was quite shocked at, it's like college is like starting high school over again. You're a freshman, and the physical part of it and the speed of play was at times a little overwhelming for me. So I think that was one area where I wouldn't say it was insecure, but just definitely noticed the difference. So. And then what was the second question again? No,
just the physicality was a tough part for you.
Yeah, it was, and I think I think part of it was just the way our team was playing as well. We were a bit more direct to college. I think we put a little more emphasis on that part of the game, and I don't think it was as conducive to some of my strengths. But again, you have to adapt, and that's your environment. And if you're there, you need to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah, what were some of the things that you said, okay, look, I'm adapting and I'm adjusting, but I can't lose this part of my game?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been big on my technical development, the basics, really. I always found ways to still do some individual work on my own, whether it was after game when I maybe didn't play, or maybe in the off season. I was always doing trainings with guys when we were off, we had time off, or just, in little moments where we had some downtime, and I found ways to get those touches in. And I feel like at the college soccer level. There is development there, but the focus is we need to win games. It's about getting results, and of course in the academics, are you going to be able to graduate? So for me, I knew that those things were such a priority because at that next level, which was my goal to play at the next level, you definitely had to have that. And at times I felt like I was missing that as a player through my development at Davis. So I really wanted to hone in on like the technical part, the individual technique and exercises and trainings to make sure I'm still kind of staying sharp in that area. My plan was, I would say my first 2 years, almost 3 years as well. My freshman and sophomore year, I wasn't playing as consistent as I wanted, and seeing other guys playing more really motivated me and saying, hey, if these guys are playing, they're getting experience. So for me, I was like, I got to do more. I got to do at least match what they're doing and need to do more in order to at least maintain what's going on. So for me, that was my approach, like mentally. But I've always been obsessed with like improvement, whether it's on the soccer field or learning. Like when it came to school, that's where I really became passionate about like school and learning. I became super competitive by like my sophomore, junior year of college because I started seeing school and learning like soccer. And I realized people were as competitive as in the classroom as they were on the against my teammates or in a game. And for me, I treated school like soccer. So I was like, I was competing. I wanted to have the best grade. I want to get the highest grade on everything and so on. So for me, it was like, I've always been interested in learning and improvement. So I think that's been a unique kind of thing that's been part of my life. And it's always been it's been ingrained into me. So that's what I think helped me be successful throughout my career.
What do you think some of the habits were that you had to form once you kind of had that realization?
Yeah, I mean, just really prioritizing, like, what do I want? A habit for me was just making sure that I'm prioritizing the things that I want in my life. And for me at the time was obviously soccer and being successful in school. I knew at the time, I wanted to have relationships and do these social, as I got older, going out, deciding when to go out, and just balancing the extra things that are fun to do, but ultimately I knew that it wasn't going to be help me reach the goal as fast as I wanted to. So I just knew that my time management and my priorities had to be a little bit realigned, and then that really helped me kind of shape my path, my foundation.
Yeah, and I remember even like the nutrition side of things, like you were always going to the nutritionist and saying, look, this is what I'm eating. This is the food that they have at like the dining commons. Yeah. What can I take from there, and how can I fit it into my nutrition? Do you think still like nowadays players are overlooking the nutrition side?
I think what's good about the nutrition is I think there's more platforms and awareness to the benefits of nutrition and ways to get information. So like obviously on TikTok, you can go to Instagram, Twitter. I mean, there's so many different avenues and ways. And not only that, just the simplicity of accessing the information is there. Whereas I think before is a little bit harder to. So I do think these things are becoming more accessible, but also people understand the value in that. And as a player, I always wanted to have like the things that I can control. I always wanted to be like above everyone. So my nutrition, I always pride myself on fitness. I was always the top. I won almost, at least when I played professionally, I won almost all of them. I lost one fitness test, and the guy was insane. But
I'm telling you should be wearing sleeves right now. We were looking, man. We haven't seen you in a while. They should wear short sleeves. All of our friends are here are watching. Yeah. We saw the guns underneath there, so I think we'd see the nutrition and the fitness has been continuous after your career.
Yeah, well, after watching Armando on the podcast, really inspired me. So.
I know. Again, the cameras you can't see. Armando's right there behind the camera celebrating. It is a Davis reunion. We are back. Matt Sheldon could not make the trip. We did not invite him, but it's okay. It's okay. We had to make some tough cuts for the group. But yeah, I think that's like you're saying, it's so accessible. A lot of people can find it out there, but it's just finding a way to, I guess, maybe change your perspective, because we all want it. And I remember reading a quote that it hit home for me. It was like, we all can get onto the field. We can all play extremely hard in the competitive nature of playing against people who want it as bad as you. We can all rise up to that level in that moment. But it's the stuff off the field that you don't take care of, whether it's nutrition, whether it's preparation, whether it's hydration, all the things that are going to be in like the 90th minute that separates you. So you feel like that was probably something like a cornerstone of your game.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you have to, I mean, this is your goal, if you want to play at that high level, you want to play at the professional level, like why not? Like, there's no reason not to do those things. And when you do those things, you'll see it. I mean, when I was playing with teammates, like, there was guys that were similar to me who were interested in being consistent about their diet, and there's guys that were as serious, and you could tell. I mean, you can just see it in training and games. They couldn't make it. Sometimes can make it through a full game. Whatever. It's just those are small differences that might make the difference between you being a starter or not. Is that, hey, he can't last 90 minutes, so maybe we don't start him. Maybe we bring him on as a sub. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. But if it's something you can control, I highly recommend doing everything you can to control it and give yourself the best opportunity.
Yeah, you started playing. You played pretty consistently, and maybe not the starter all the time at Davis, but you played a decent amount consistently. What was like you said, recognizing, hey, I'm not starting, I'm not playing, but still I need to get the same amount of fitness and not take those moments of not playing as like I can relax and stuff like that. You were still getting the work after the games and stuff. So what were those moments like? Was someone whispering in your ear, hey, stay fit just in case, or was that more internal?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. I'd say mostly internal, but my parents were always super supportive of everything, and they just told me you got to keep working, you got to keep pushing. But for me, it was that internal. I think some players have a hard time channeling their frustration into positive energy, and for me, I wanted to use that frustration as fuel. So, like, I remember a game. It was a UCLA game, and we played a home game, and we beat them, and I don't remember what exactly happened, but I remember the head coach had told me something that I was going to play, or I don't know. It seemed like there was, I don't know if it was a personal thing at the time or whatever, but I know I didn't play, and it hurt so bad because I just saw, obviously, us winning, and then it was like the most fans I think we've ever had at a game. And I didn't just do this after UCLA, but just this game in particular stood out to me. But after every game I wouldn't play a lot, I would go to Howard Field, and I would go and run, and I would just start doing a workout. Like I tried to do sprints that replicated the game, because my thought process was, the guy in front of me just played a full game. His fitness increased and mine didn't. So I was like, I got to get better. I got to at least maintain that. So, and the same thing was playing professionally. Obviously, we had more people kind of regulating our fitness, but I was the same way. Like, man, if I don't start, like, I'm going to push myself after the game. I'm going to work. So, yeah, that's kind of really what helped me try to stay kind of in line. But my internal motivation was, my goal was to be a professional, and I knew that it was going to take time, but if I didn't do these things now, it wasn't going to help me create the kind of mentality that I need to get to that next level.
Yeah, you said something that's really important. I feel like regulating yourself when no one else is watching it, like, it needs to mean more to you than anybody else. And when you start looking at the players who outlast other people, not just in games, but in their careers and in life, really, in business and all that stuff, like, they regulate themselves because they know that, yeah, this work that I'm putting in the short instant gratification time, it's not going to benefit me as much because no one's watching me at Howard Field.
Like,
if you were doing it to just show off to the coach, you'd, like, after the final whistle, you're doing wind sprints down the field. That's one thing. But I think you actually saying, I'm going to grab a ball back, go out to the field, I'm just going to run, no one's going to see me, and then putting in that work, regulating yourself in that sense, I feel like those small marginal gains at the end of the day will start to add up and add up and add up, whether in life or throughout the season.
Right. Yeah. What about you? I know you had a really interesting journey into the position of goalkeeper and some injuries, but, like, was there a time when you weren't obviously playing, just were you struggling mentally, or, like, what were the things that worked for you to overcome maybe some doubts? Or
the worst part is I've always been a starter. So, like, that was for me, even like my freshman year, I came in and it was like captain's practice and I broke my wrist. So I mentally already checked out. I said, okay, I'm not going to play this year. I'm in a redshirt. So right away, it was kind of just like, okay, I can take some time off. I've always been that kind of guy, unfortunately, when I was younger, of like, oh, I worked extremely hard. That means I can eat whatever meal I want.
Right. You've earned it.
Yeah, I've earned it. It's really what it was. Like, okay, we just finished Ramadan, or like I just fasted all day. Now I'm going to go crazy with this food. Like, that's just how I was. I wanted that, like, reminder that, okay, you can work hard tomorrow, but you're going to get that reward at the end of the day. And I feel like when I got to Davis, I was very fortunate because I was going to redshirt. I had a broken wrist still.
Right.
So they said, hey, we're going to have surgery. We're going to take care of you after the season. So just keep on, taping it up. And then probably a few games into the season, the starting goalkeeper goes down with a concussion. Yeah. And then that
was a whole crazy.
It was crazy. Like 3 days later, not 3 days later, like 3 or 4 games later, Tommy goes up for the second goalkeeper comes out for a cross. He gets undercut and then lands on his shoulder. And so right away, I went from like, okay, I'm going to relax, chill, and do nothing to all of a sudden I'm the starter. So for me, it wasn't even like a moment of like, oh, I need to work hard to become the starter. It was like, I'm chilling, I'm redshirting, it's not a big deal. But all of a sudden now I'm being called, but there's no pressure on me now.
Right.
So then I became the starter and then was a starter the rest of my time at Davis. But still, like we had other guys, Chris was probably a little bit more set in his ways of regulating. Chris Yxhults was very regulated on his like workout regimen and all that stuff. Then Armando obviously came in. He was not really much of a threat to me. To be honest with you, I didn't really think of him as a threat.
He did some good showtime though.
He did some good showtime. He was the guy in training that you just go, oh my God, this guy's gonna win every single game because he was just so competitive. But no, I'm just kidding, Mondo. I love you.
He's actually hell of a forward.
He is a great forward. But no, to kind of full circle answer your question, I think that there was still a lot of things for me that didn't necessarily, like I wasn't punished for not doing those things. But then obviously, you finish your college setup and then you start realizing, okay, I need to get a real job, and like my life is transitioning into the real world.
Yeah.
And I think once you start transitioning into the real world, no one's going to care about your progression in life or regulate you as much as you need to regulate yourself. And I had so many jobs that I took because I wanted people to see me and say, Omar makes a lot of money. So I was doing insurance and they sold you the dream. I remember sitting there going, I'm about to make $1 million. This is going to be amazing. And then you actually start, oh crap, I actually have to do some selling here. I have to like write down my contacts. It's my entire family.
Oh, yeah, I have to actually go to work.
Yeah, I have to actually go to work. But that's where I feel like the challenges, which if you don't regulate yourself, and I keep using that word because I love it, but it's like if you don't take care of your stuff while you're in a structured position, when you're out of that structure, you are the one who creates the structure. And if you don't have the proper foundational pieces to start building that up, the whole world feels like it's crumbling. Yeah. But I feel like I was fortunate, luckily at the time, was like my parents said, hey, come work for us. And then I said, sure. So again, my dad was my boss. So there's still a little bit of like not real world just yet.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went back to Davis, did some, coaching there, found a little bit of love for coaching, but still when I came back home, I was kind of just like, I'm going to do these jobs that are going to make me a lot of money.
Right.
And in the end, I had no expertise. I had no knowledge of these things, let alone a foundation of how to actually build a career in these fields.
Right.
And then as things started to progress, my parents were like, look, we understand that you're doing these jobs to make money. Stop. Like start doing things that you actually love. Even if the money's not there, just start it. We'll support you. You have a house here. Like you don't have to pay rent. Just do all that.
Yeah.
And I said, sure. But again, that was the adversity that I started realizing internally, like, oh my God, all the shortcuts I've taken up until this point are catching up to me. And you can lie to yourself for a week, a month, maybe even like 2-3 months. But after a while, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I just told Elliott that I just worked out today when in reality I haven't done shit. I just told these guys that I'm making this much money when in reality it's not. And you start looking at yourself in the mirror like, who are you, bro? Like, why are you lying to people? And eventually that catches up to you and you have to sit down and say, look, I need to create a system that is going to make me happy. It's not going to be perfect right away, but like start building the habits and characteristics that I want. And still, like I wasn't perfect, but you start figuring things out and layering parts of your personality, start improving. Right. And you say, look, maybe I'm not somebody who likes to go to the gym very often, but maybe I go for 10, 15 minutes, start on the treadmill and then see what happens. And I think that is where I started realizing, let me just dip my foot in a little bit and it won't be as scary or as threatening as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And then you start realizing, oh my God, I belong here. Oh my God, I can actually do these things. And I feel like through Pro GK and everything, I found something that I love. But you have so much adversity and challenges that I feel like I wish I had learned while I was a player, and I think I did, but I never really was sharp enough or aware enough, self-aware enough to be like, this is happening to me. How can I sit in this for a few minutes or a few weeks and say, I can take these lessons and extract them and use it for my personal life?
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like obviously your lessons maybe came a little bit later than mine at times. Like, I think mine may have come earlier in college or maybe even before, but obviously I think everyone's on their unique path and the timing of things happen in a unique way. But do you wish maybe that you weren't thrown into it right away at Davis and that you maybe had those challenges earlier on? Like,
yeah, I think I read a quote from Steve Jobs, and he says, like, as you go through life, you can't really connect the dots. It's only when you look back that you start to connect the dots.
Right.
And I feel, to answer your question, I felt that as I looked back, I probably needed a little bit more adversity and a little bit more of just somebody getting into my face. And I had people like that. I'm not saying I didn't, but I think just saying, hey, you're not going to play this week because this guy has outplayed you, and just constant reminders of that, I think that would have been great. But I feel like my talent, like how I played the position, I was able to mitigate some of the challenges that I had. I'm slow, right? I'm not the fastest guy. My first step isn't very fast, but I recognize, well, if we play a decently high line, I need to start about 20, 30 yards off my line.
Right.
Just because I need to make up that ground faster than somebody else, maybe like Chris was, and Armando, who were a lot faster,
Right.
who can make up that ground faster and have a deeper starting position.
Yeah.
But I always found ways to not take shortcuts, but what is something that I'm faced with that I can't do very well? What's a challenge? And how can I find the quickest shortcut to alleviate that adversity from my life? And I feel like I read this quote one time, and I wish I never read it. If you want something done fast, give it to the laziest person, and they will find the fastest and most efficient way to do it. And I felt like that was my life in school. That was my life. Don't laugh at the school part. We have Aggie here, who I've cheated off of multiple times in school. God bless you. But no, there was those moments where I got caught here and there, and like I got in trouble and I stumbled. But the obstacles, in my opinion, weren't enough to deter me from making a lifestyle change, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't maybe severe enough, or maybe just at the time you weren't obviously maybe emotionally ready to make that change. And
No, I think the thing is that like you spend the most time with yourself, right? So if you can fool yourself and continue to tell yourself life is good, we're chilling, we're by the skin of our teeth, we're making it, then you can just say you can get by as long as you want. But then eventually, when like you're not the only person that you are responsible for, it's like more of like, look, I'm a part of this team, I'm working for this company, and if I don't carry my share, I'm bringing the whole team down with me.
Right.
And those were the things I think that I didn't take personally even as a player, because I was like, we're still getting some results here and there, so like the things that I'm doing off the field haven't really affected the team that much, and I'm just doing just enough to be seen as someone who's like providing to the team where I can continue keeping my starting position. So I think if I look back, I wish there maybe was something that, not catastrophic, but something that happened to me that made me go, shit, man, I wish I would do this a little bit differently. But look, catastrophic, there's injuries, right? There's some that like last a few weeks, some that last a year.
Yeah.
I remember going into your senior year, I think it was a knee injury, maybe junior year, and then groin too, no?
Knee was, junior year was the groin, and then the knee was my senior year. Yeah, and the groin was a weird one, and we'd been trying to figure it out for like almost 2 months. And I went to see this chiropractor. Shout out Conti for the recommendation. Told me this guy's a guru. He was, and went there, and he's like, "Oh, like yeah, this is easy." I was like, "You just had a spasm or something. You just needed to be like released." And he just did an adjustment, and he's like, "Oh yeah, go play." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, try sprint right here." And I sprinted and I did some side shuffles, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't have any pain." He's like, "Yeah, you're fine. You go ahead." Yeah. He's like, "I could have fixed this months ago." Like, oh my God. I remember going out to Howard Field and playing kick the ball. I couldn't believe it. I was just like crying while I was running around. But, and then my knee, I know I got into a 50-50 challenge with a player in training, and I don't know, my knee wasn't locked enough or whatever, and I kind of sprained my MCL. So that was tough, and I'd come back with maybe 2 or 3 games. And I think that also really, again, motivated me to really want to keep pushing. And like I'd been out, I missed a good chunk of my senior season, and it was hard. It was really tough emotionally, but again, I knew I was good enough to play at a higher level. Didn't know how high, but I knew that there was something there that I could do, and I just had to really stick with it.
What were some of the struggles? Was it just like, I want to get back as quickly as possible? Did you feel like a piece of your identity was gone? Because it was the senior year, and like you had played already, so it wasn't like you could have a medical red shirt or anything.
Yeah, I think I just think that I'd have given so much to the sport, and not being able to play that last part of your potential season. And I knew that, it was really just, I've never, any injury I've had, I've never been one to like think about like rushing it. I've always been someone who, and I advocate this to all players to say, like, follow the process, listen to the trainers, listen to the PT, listen to the experts. I'm not a medical expert. If some trainer who has knowledge in these areas and these things, like, I'm going to most likely listen to them, and being patient. Like, you have to be patient. The last thing I've ever wanted to, because the way I look at it was, if I listen to the people that are experts in physical therapy, medical doctors, recovery, etc., if I listen to them and I get hurt again, or if something happens, at least I knew internally that I had followed what was recommended. But if I always like, oh, come back faster, or be doing extra stuff on the side, whatever that I'm not supposed to be doing, it's like you're the only one to blame. Yeah. So I try to minimize the stress and really just say, look, if I follow what I should do, and if I do get hurt again or something, then that was meant to happen for whatever reason. So yeah, that's really my kind of approach to these things. So
yeah, okay, so. One thing that I feel I liked about you, similar to like Matt Sheldon and even Armando, it was like you guys had so many obstacles that you had to face going into your pro career. Mm-hmm. And I know after the senior season, what was the outlook for professional, and kind of what were the next steps for you? Yeah,
so as soon as I finished Davis, I knew Fresno at the time was going to be the best environment for me to go back and train in. I had some people there. I had a friend named Milton Blanco. He was doing a lot of trainings. He was also playing professionally as well, but he was kind of getting to the end of his career, and we would train together. We were training partners. We always trained together. And sometimes it would just be him and I, just one-on-one training. Sometimes we'd have the guys come in town. It would just kind of be a variety of different things. Some college guys, some former pro guys, some off-season pro guys. So I was always in that environment, just training and training and training. And my first experience, and actually Alex Aggie was there, we got invited to go to trial with Sac Republic at their open tryout. And that's when Preki was the first season. So we went to the Davis Legacy Fields. And it was a good environment. There's some great players. A lot of guys got signed from there, but we both unfortunately didn't make it at the time. And for myself at least, I felt like there was some. I was ready, but I was still missing some things to really make that next level jump. So that was really interesting. That was really my first professional kind of environment. After that, I really wanted to obviously keep going. I was trying to figure out how do I get into a pro team, or how do I become a pro? And thankfully I had Milton and some people in Fresno that were really just well connected and pro experience, telling me to go to combines, go to trainings, and the different areas where you're in front of these coaches. So I was training. I went to a bunch of combines. I went to like PSC, Pro Soccer Consulting combines. I went to Ventura County Fusion, holds a lot of combines. Yep. And I went to a bunch of them. I went to like probably 4 or 5, and just nothing really panned out. The only time actually the one did pan out was the Ventura County Fusion Combine. I played well, and Tulsa Roughnecks, their first season as a team, their inaugural season, the head coach came up to me, hey, I want to invite you to preseason. So I was like, yeah, it's my first, I've never been to preseason with a pro club. This is really exciting. So I went there. I was there for like a little over a month and a half, and it was tough because pretty much the whole time there, aside from like maybe the last week, we were training indoors because it was still snow and it was cold, and they're still figuring stuff out, especially as a brand new team in the USL Championship. So it was going well. Did some preseason games. I was playing as a center mid. I was going out as a center mid. At the combines, I was playing as a center mid because deep down at the time I was like, I'm a center mid. I'm not an outside back. And so I did well. I was it came down to the last week before the season started, and I got cut. Last player to be cut. And man, it hurt so bad. Like it just killed me. I was there, like I said, a month and a half, training, doing well, just on my own dime. You're paying for everything. I mean, they put me in a room, but still everything else was like, it's just on me. You was taking a huge investment. And it was so hard. And I came home, I was down, and thankfully I was always found ways to use that energy in a positive manner.
For fuel, yeah.
Yeah, for fuel. And so it just motivated me more. And from there, I went to a different combine with PSC, and they told me they're like, hey, we want to, the assistant coach for Tulsa really was a part owner of PSC. His name's Tom Tailor. Tom was like, hey, I really liked you at Tulsa. Obviously, it wasn't my final decision, but I would like you to come on our trip to go to Sweden. They take a showcase team. It's like a go and play teams in Sweden with PSC. So it was really nice. They paid for my flight. I just had to pay for my hotel and food, which is awesome. So I knew they were invested in me to an extent. They believed in me, so that showed that they really believe in me. I can believe in myself when I go here. Got to Sweden. Took one day of just getting there and kind of settling in. The next day we had a game against Örebro SK, who plays in Allsvenskan, which is the Premier League of Sweden. We actually played their U18s, who's still a very, very good team. I ended up showing really well that game. I was playing center mid still, and there was a bunch of coaches there. Went and played a couple more games. One of the coaches that was there came to another game, and within about 2 weeks, he's like, "Hey, I want to bring you in on a trial. We have a game. We have a scrimmage tomorrow." So I was like, "Okay." And this is a third division club called Yxhults. It's hard to spell it. Yxhults IK, and they played in a small town, probably 20 or 30,000 people. It's like a town club, but still considered professional level. It was third division, and got to Sweden. Was enjoying it. Did well in the game. I think I had a goal and assist. Was just really feeling good, and they're like, "Hey, we want to sign you." And I was like, "Man, I couldn't believe it." I was just like shocked. So that was pretty crazy how fast that happened, and I'm glad obviously I took the chance to go there. The team was in so they have promotion relegation. They were in a relegation zone, and came in. We really did help transform the kind of the culture there and bring in some firing power and some help. I was actually another American that signed with me. And we actually ended up getting relegated. We ended up losing. So it was a really cool experience because I've never been part of promotion relegation. The intensity and just the whole environment, you tell people are on edge and this is so big to the club in town. And obviously losing wasn't a great feeling, but it was also unique in being part of that because we don't have that obviously here in the United States. So that was my first taste of European soccer. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you said they're the last person cut in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Well, how long between that, I guess, you lost that opportunity and then the Sweden opportunity? Was there enough time for you to process everything, or was it quick?
So I went to Sweden in, what was it? It was almost a year later because I got to, I was playing with Fresno Fuego, which is a PDL team. It was comparable to USL, this old PDL, but now it's called the USL League 2. It's an amateur league. A lot of college guys playing it. So I played there for the summer, and then I went in August, I left to Sweden. And that was about a little over halfway of their season in Sweden because they take a break. And then once I got there, I had played some with the PDL, got some more experience, and then I went over there to play. So that was really good. And then once the season ended, I flew home, and I wasn't going to go back. Not that I have a great experience, but it's just I think their situation with the club and just some other things that were going on that I was like, okay, I'm looking for something else. Then PSC again helped me I got to go trial with a team in Ireland called Finn Harps, and they just got promoted to the Irish Premier League. So that was really cool. And I also went to go trial with Cork City, who's also a really big club in Ireland. And the Premier League in Ireland is pretty. I mean, it's good. It has a lot of history. Shamrock Rovers are in there. Dundalk, who's been a Champions League, Europa League. Some of these teams have all been Champions League champions and Europa League. So really cool. Was with Finn Harps, man. It was really hard. I was there in January, and it was just freezing cold. The rain. It was just a different environment. And the town I was in was it's called Ballybuffon. I can't remember how to say it, but it was this small town, and it was just cold and dark, and it was just hard from being from California to go to Ireland. And Ireland's a beautiful country, but just my experience there, it's just because it was related to soccer, was not a really pleasant one. And I had trained with them. I had played in a scrimmage with them, and I think they're still in the top division. I'd have to check, but it was hard because I think their style from at least the team I was with, very direct, very fast, very strong. I mean, man, the tackling, the physicality was just on a whole different level. It was just a lot, and that was the style, and that's again, you have to adapt to your environment. So every environment is going to be different. So, but yeah, so after that, I came back. I was there for about 2 months. And I played PDL again. I was playing with Fresno Fuego, and we had an amazing season. We were won the conference. We were we were an excellent team. The great thing about Fresno Fuego was we've always either had guys that are ready to play pro or have played pro, or are just a really, really good pool of players. We've always been, and so it's been a great place for me to develop around a lot of senior guys, a lot of young players or up and coming players. So a lot of good college players, bringing in guys from out of town. So it was just a really high level environment to be training in and playing games. And at the time, my teammate Christian Cheney was getting scouted by Sac Republic. So the head assistant coach at Sac Republic at the time, his name's Adam Smith. He was coming to our games, and he really liked the team. We always played in preseason with Fresno Fuego. We always played pro teams. So we played New York Cosmos. That's when what's his name?
Raul, no?
Raul was there, and then we played Sac Republic. We actually played FC Atarat, who was a team from Armenia. So we played a lot of preseason games, but every time we played Sac Republic, they called it the Highway 99 Derby. But we were tied with it. We were actually beating them the whole game until the last 2 minutes of the game. They scored on us, and we lost in penalties. But we were competing with, that was the quality of our team. We were a pro level team. We just weren't officially pros. But their coach really liked our team. It was so close down the road, so the head coach at the time established a relationship with our head coach and our staff. So our head coach, Sean Lanigan, had gone up to Sacramento to learn from them and come back. But at the end of the season, I was always watching Sac Republic because I knew how close they were, and I saw their captain, Emer Clemente, he did his ACL. His ACL was done. And then I was watching their games, and I was like, man, every single game they've played there was a new right back. Every single game, and they were struggling. At the time, they were number one in conference, but they still were they were either struggling or they're dropping some games. And I think late July, early August, a couple weeks after our PDL season, I reached out to Sean, and I just seen the lineup kept changing. I was like, man, they don't have an outside back. And at Fuego, that's time that was my first time really playing outside back. I was consistent, and I was doing really well. Felt like I was playing my best soccer I played. So I call Sean, and I say, hey, call Sac Republic, call their coach, and say, listen, just give this guy a chance. Just give him a chance to come in and train. Because I just knew, I was like, if they give me that chance, I can make the team. So he's like, okay, I'm going to call Adam. He calls Adam. He's like, hey, Adam, I wanted to ask you about Elliott. Da-da-da-da. He's like, really? He's like, because I was just about to call you about Elliott. And he's like, no way. I just got off the phone with him. He's like, yeah, we want to bring him in for a trial. This was on a Sunday, I think, because they just played the night before, and that's when I was watching. He calls me back. He's like, yeah, hey, Adam just told me he was going to call me about you. And I was like, you're kidding me. He's like, yeah. He's like, he wants you there tomorrow. Can you be up there? I was like, yeah. So grabbed all my stuff, went to my old house at Eureka. I stayed, shout out Brian Ford, Eureka House, and all the crew. Went to Eureka, stayed the night, woke up, went straight to Republic training. They train at Consumnes River College in Elk Grove. Really nice little training setup. And I don't know what it was, but I just knew that I was ready. My mentality was, this wasn't like a nerve-wracking moment. This was like, I belong here. And that was my whole, and I think that's also a big part of making that next jump, is you have to have the mentality that you are good enough. There's a reason you're here. You really do believe that you should be here. And that's my approach when I went to training. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was God or whatever it was, but that day, I was probably the best player in training. I had an amazing training. And even the coach and the assistant, I spoke to the assistant. I still talk to him. I spoke to him the other day. He lives in Fresno, and he's like, yeah, you had the best training we've seen that day. And he jokes about it, But I just came in and killed it. I just knew mentally, I was like, hey, I belong here. I belong here. I deserve to be here. There's a reason why I'm here today. And then as soon as the training's done, I'm walking away, and about 10 yards away was Graham Smith, who was the GM, and Paul Buckle was the head coach. About 10 yards away from me, I just heard him say, oh, yeah, should we sign Elliott? Nah, he's not good enough. He's not good enough. And I kind of look over, and they're both kind of just giving me a smirk, and they're like, come here. And I'm like, oh, do you want to play for the Sac Republic? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, we're going to sign you. And I was like, I went from calling my old head coach from Fuego on Sunday to driving up Sunday night to trialing for one day and then saying they're going to sign me. And I was like, man, like what just happened? It was like a whirlwind, And from then, I mean, there was a lot of stuff obviously happens I was there for 4 seasons, but just the way it happened was like, I had to be proactive in like making sure that I'm looking for my opportunities, but also just, good timing and preparation. The other thing was like, I always stayed fit. Like my old head coach from Fuego, his name's Scott Alcorn, was like, you, as a soccer player, you always have to be ready. Like maybe not 90-minute fit, but you always have to be sharp. And I was still training, but like if I wasn't training or PDL season was over, I was like, I'll take a break, whatever. Like imagine I had taken a break, like time off, and like then I go to preseason or go to trial with Sacramento, and it's like I wouldn't have been ready, So I think just always constant preparation and being sharp has been worked out for me really well. And yeah, from there we ended up winning conference. We were conference champions that season. So I played the last 7 or 8 games. I think I finished within those games. I had 2 assists. I won like player of the week. My last week I was there. Like it was just the last week of the normal season. We go to playoffs. We end up losing first round to OC Blues. So like just for all that to happen that fast was just like it's very surreal. So
yeah. What was I mean, you guys got relegated obviously in Sweden.
Uh-huh.
What was your mentality like once that was done? I mean, did you feel like your ego took a hit of like I'm playing with top club in Sweden and Europe, now I'm coming back here playing PDL? Like what were your emotions kind of? Did you handle that well?
Yeah, I mean the level was comparable to PDL. I would say maybe a little bit higher. Just a different game though. The emphasis on certain parts of the game were different. I think the Swedish league was a little like slower play, but very more methodical and tactical, and also just the culture and personality there is a little bit like calmer and not as like sometimes intense.
Yeah.
So I think that had to play a part of it. But no, my mentality was like, man, like okay, I have this good experience. I got some stuff on my resume. Maybe this can help me do well in PDL, and then go from there to my kind of like catapult myself into that next position. So I've never been someone that I'm confident in myself. I've never been like, oh, I'm better than this, or like, I'm bigger than this. So, and to me, that's huge. And I've never been that type of person. I've always tried to stay humble, like chip on the shoulder mentality. And for me, that worked.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And you have obviously your first season there you're playing, and you guys get to the conference championship or
we won the regular season championship, and then we ended up going to the first round. We hosted OC Blues, and we ended up actually losing to them.
Penalties. No, or?
It was it was penalties. Yeah. You remember that?
I remember watching it. Yeah.
Wow. Saw me cry.
That was rough. But you go into the next season. What were the I guess your expectations? Were you like, okay, I'm a starter now, or did you say, look, it's brand new, start from scratch, we gotta fight for this position again?
Yeah, it was always been that like I gotta go in, I gotta work, like I gotta be ready, like because I don't know who they're bringing in, I don't know what they're thinking. The thing that was tough was my end of the season meeting with them after my first season was like, hey, we liked you, we want to offer you this contract, but we also like we want to see more for longer periods, obviously. So they liked what they saw from the time. I was there for about 2 months, but now they're, hey, can you be a pro for the whole year? Can you maintain your body? Can you rise to the occasion? Maintain performance, and that is like. If there's one thing that when I think about professional soccer is the word that sticks out to me is consistency. Like you have to be consistent, and that is the hardest thing day in and day out, like to be a consistent player. So, the end of the season conversation was just like, we need to see more, but we like you. We want to keep you around. So that was kind of initially like, okay, that resonated with me in the off season, working, training, doing what I needed to do to prepare. So that was kind of my mentality going into the next seasons.
And next season you were like, I don't even want to look at midfield anymore. I'm gonna be right back. And that was your new position, and you stuck with it.
Yeah, and I was a bit fortunate because the coach, Paul Buckle, who his style, his principles, his tactics were very conducive to my strengths, was an attacking outside back. He liked to have some time. We had wingers. We liked to be inverted at times. We played a diamond at times, so I would be the one providing the width. But my strengths was getting up and recognizing when to get up, and then my ability to cross the ball was probably my biggest strength. So it just being part of the right environment too was really important.
That's a big one, is that sometimes you – we talked about it with Armando and different. Maybe the goalkeeping side is one thing, but the players who continue to push forward,
right,
and say, you know what, I'm not too big for this trial. I'm not too big for this club. I'm not too big for this new team. I'm going to keep going and going and going. And at the end of the day, if your mentality is like, I'm going to be a pro and that's like what my lifestyle is going to be, I'm always going to stay fit. I'm always going to stay ready to go. You're going to continue to go. And eventually there's going to be a situation where maybe luck, maybe just somebody who you had spoken to a few months prior, and they say, you know what, Elliott, you are somebody that I know would fit in this position. This team is looking for it. I'm going to put my name in the hat for you. I'm going to put my name on the line. And I think that's what I think some players need to do more of, is like, you just never know who is going to be thinking of you at what moments. But if you just stop and you're not playing anymore, they can't think of you. So you just never know what fit's going to happen. As long as you just keep pushing forward and your why is strong enough, you're going to probably maybe stumble upon something that's going to be something that's worthwhile for you.
Yes, definitely. And just that mentality of being prepared. And again, I'm not saying you have to be 190 minutes fit, ready for the game, but you do need to be ready to go into an environment if you are called upon. So yeah, and it was great just because it really shows that your environment and the people that I've seen so many players come in to train with us, to come trial, and they're great. They are pro players, but part of it is just timing. Like, do we really need that player at this time, or does this player really fit our coach's wants and desires for that team? And those guys are pro players, but maybe at a different time or with a different coach. So for me, it worked out because he liked those things. I could have been with a different coach who didn't want an attacking outside back, who didn't like to get forward and cross. And yeah, I think I still could have done it, but it wouldn't have played to Mike. It wouldn't have showcased me more and utilized those strengths. So I also think that if you're getting opportunities and things aren't working, like, I really do believe that unless they're directly telling like you're just not good enough, then it is about preferences and what style and things, and also just timing. Do they have the ability to afford a player? Do we want to increase our roster size? Yeah.
What were some of your challenges? You said that you were there for 4 years. So what were some of the challenges that you faced along those 4 years? Because I think the way it started, and you coming in with zero expectation, I think as you start making a little bit more of a name for yourself, and the club looks at you through a different lens of like, this is probably someone we can just automatically team sheet, Elliott, Hord, right back, we're good. So what were the expectations? And obviously maybe with more expectation, there's going to be more challenges because you have to live up to those things.
I definitely think so there's a couple of things that stand out. One was my second year. We had another outside back who Peter McGlynn, really good players, actually, this Irish guy, played at UC Santa Barbara, and he was a very different player than me. He was very aggressive, very more of a true stay-home kind of defender. I mean, he attacked at times, but I think there was moments at times where I kind of didn't bring that level of like physicality and intensity, and I think certain games the coach had wanted that. So I think I was battling like, how can I bring that out into my game? And it's hard because every player has their own personality and things to work on, but it just didn't feel as natural to me. So I was trying to maybe at times manage that like expectation of like, well, he does this better, so how can I maybe add that to my game? I mean, there's always at Sacramento. There's the constant pressure of winning. Like, you're expected to win. Like, you are expected to win. You be a top one or two teams in conference. You're expected to be going far in Open Cup. And I've been on a couple crazy Open Cup runs, some big games, some goals, some fun goals and assists.
Against the LA Galaxy.
LAFC.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I remember you was in LA. I forget where.
Don't do it again. So there is a pressure there, and it's a great environment. There's 12,000 people at most games, and I think that was a challenge itself. But my third year, in the off season, I had an injury. I had to get a arthroscopic surgery done to my knee. I had some it's called a cartilage debridement. Pretty much it's like a hanging toenail on my cartilage on my knee. So anytime I would squat, go upstairs, bend my knee, push off my leg, it's like a hanging toenail that would just catch and it would just rub and it was causing bruising. So I was kind of entering preseason in my third season as well with a new coach, Simon Elliott. And Simon was obviously he'd seen me, but at the end of the day, if you're not starting preseason with the team, he's going to be having people that he wants and kind of honing in and starting to kind of get the team together. So he had known I've been with the club and he's seen me play, but at the end of the day, you got to what can they do for me right now is the priority, because that's their job. I mean, everyone's job's on the line. So I had to find my way in. It was tough. I was recovering from the knee injury. I was slowly getting in. I started my first game against Seattle Sounders. Their first team, we played a home game against them. It was an Open Cup. First time I started a game from my injury, and I ended up getting the game-winning assist, and we ended up winning 2-1, and that was pretty cool. I think Clint Dempsey was playing. There was a couple. They had a mix of guys. So Open Cup at the time, they mixed a lot of the players. Sounders 2 team and the first team.
Yeah.
And then we go on to the next one. I think the next one was. Yeah, it was LAFC, I think. This is my third season. And go to LAFC, and we ended up I ended up scoring the first goal against them, and then they score, and then we just go back and forth. We ended up losing 3-2, but it was actually after that game, it was the hardest point. It was the hardest thing for me mentally, but also the best thing that's ever happened to me as a player, because there was, I think, 2 of the goals we conceded. I was a big part of it. And it wasn't the main reason, but I had played a significant role in why we conceded on the goals. And it taught me it taught me the lessons of the position, how valuable these fundamental things are. And it hurt bad because I knew I was at fault, but I also had learned the most from that, and that's what really. I could have taken it negatively and been hard on myself, and I was, but I also knew as again, back to my always learning. I always want, how can I get better? What can my lens is, how can I get better from the situation? Not how can I get more down on myself. So I looked at it, I watched it, I learned from it, and from there, I don't really recall making those drastic game-changing mistakes. But yeah, I think that was hard for me to just find that kind of mentality, a way to kind of see the scenario. And, but again, I ended up finding a way to really make it into a positive.
Yeah.
So
I'm jealous, man. I feel anytime you've been faced with adversity, you find a way to change the perspective and make it more of a positive. And like you said earlier, make it something that you fuel yourself with. But I'm sure there's been moments that within the process of changing the perspective, whatever, a day, 2 days, a week, there is some dark times in there.
Oh, 100%. I don't remember this specifically, but what I do remember is it's a constant conversation, internal conversation with yourself. And I do a lot of self-talk, visualization. I really I do have a lot of conversations with myself and thinking hey, I know I can be my biggest fan or my worst enemy. And your internal, that dialogue with yourself is so important. So I really focused on, trying to understand, be realistic about it. If you messed up, understand that was your reality. Or if a coach says something hey, Elliott, you're not ready to be a pro, okay, I'm not going to say, I asked them. I always ask why. What am I not doing enough? Or what did you see that was? I always ask feedback. I always, in my classes, if I didn't do well, okay, why didn't I do well? Always looking back and finding ways to say, okay, don't just point the finger at someone else. Take responsibility, because ultimately it's on you, and no one's gonna care at the end of the day as much as you will. So I was man, how can I improve? How can I be a better player? How can I be a better person? So that was really, I really think that was a big part of how I was able to kind of overcome those situations. And then my fourth season, I don't know, it was the hardest time in my professional. It was my last year playing professionally, but. Had a great preseason. I had probably the best preseason. I was playing so well. I was getting amazing feedback from the staff. It was the same staff. So my first 2 years at Sac Republic was Paul Buckle and Adam Smith. As Paul Buckle, the head coach, Adam Smith was the assistant. And then my last 2 years was Simon Elliott as the head coach and Ben Ziemer as the assistant coach. But yeah, great preseason. Was playing well. Just fourth year with the club. Feeling good. People, I know everyone. Fans know who you are. And our first game, I had a bad game, really bad game. I don't know what it was. Something mentally at the time, I think. But it wasn't, it wasn't the worst game ever. It just wasn't a good game. But after that, so I don't know what it was, but the coach, Simon, we had a conversation the next day. And then from then, he just never really
trusted you again.
I don't think he trusted me. I really don't. And he put in other guys, and he gave me some other opportunities here and there, but not as a defender. He put me more at the outside, like a winger, and I was okay at it. But I think my strength, instead of the winger, when you get the ball as a winger, most people know like you're gonna be trying to go to goal, and like your run is more obvious to go to goal. And for me as an outside back, the one thing that I felt like was my strength was my ability to recognize
deceptiveness.
Yes, exactly. Being deceptive and getting into space, kind of under the radar, and that's what I felt like helped me be successful in that part of my game. So I think as a winger, that's where I lacked that maybe
urgency or
just maybe creativity at times. I mean, so it was harder for me, but I was in and out of games that season, nothing crazy, some games here and there. I mean, I wasn't completely out of the situation, but we were that season we struggled the most we've ever have. Thankfully we still made playoffs, but we were the last place in playoffs. We were number 8. We've never done that as a club. And it was just a tough year. It was a tough year for the team. There was a lot of stress, a lot of, I think, you could just sense it from the staff, from the players. It was a tough environment. And that's a reality of pro sports. Like, you got to be able to manage those emotions and find ways to kind of de-stress and let those things go. But I remember like 3 months left in the season. I'd gone to a conversation with Simon. I said, hey, I'm trying to understand why am I playing? What do I need to do to get back in the starting line? Like, what are these players doing that are playing? Even though we've been either maybe some players are conceding goals on that side, or we've been losing, things aren't going well. Like, what do you see that is not getting me on the field? Why am I not getting a chance? And I don't really remember specifically what he said, but at the time, I don't think it was really a direct reason. I just knew that it came down to like, I don't really see you playing anymore for us this year. And I really don't, more or less, I don't really trust you in that position. So, and that's okay. I think I'm a little more direct about specifically why and what, but look, I mean, he's the head coach. He's going to say and do what he needs to do. And I have nothing against Simon for that. But I just said, okay, well, I want to go and I need to go play because I wasn't playing. My stock was dropping as a player. So I went to go on trial. I told my agent, said, hey, I want to go play somewhere. I got to go playing. My old coach from Paul Buckle from Sac Republic it's kind of like a GM in a way, kind of someone who was working at Hartford Athletic, plays in the Eastern Conference in the championship. So it was a newer team. Went to Hartford and played my last 2.5 months there. I had 4 assists in 8 games.
Wow.
And I didn't score, but we definitely helped the team. But I was playing well, and I found my groove back, and it was a unique journey to get there. But yeah, there were some really tough just days where I knew when I was in training at Sacramento, I just felt that there was no hope. But it was just part of who I was. Like, I knew that like I had to keep going not for today, it's for what's going to come.
Yeah. But like you said, it's about being proactive, and even being proactive about trying to get to college and trying to find ways to facilitate a move or facilitate something that's going to make you happy and it's going to put you in the best scenario to showcase your best, I guess, attributes as a player.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, through and through, when you talk about regulating yourself at a young age, that showed itself in this moment when you said, look, I'm not playing. I understand you've given me the reasons why. Maybe I agree. I don't fully agree.
Right.
But now I need to realize, look, my stock is where it is now. I need to keep rising. And by me sitting on the bench, it's not going to happen. So I need to create a scenario here. You told me I need to move. I need to go find something.
Yeah.
But again, it's that proactivist. I think there's so many players who just kind of say, you know what, sure, okay, I'm not playing. I'm going to keep working. And that's fine. But at a certain point, like you said, you kind of have to have those tough conversations to say, look, I'm going to bet on myself. I need to make this move. I need to go somewhere.
Right.
But I just feel like maybe it's just me, and it's me talking, me personally, of like, okay, I'm not the starter. Okay, I'll keep working. But then sometimes it's just like work, it's just not going to get you there. You kind of maybe have to make a move.
Yeah, you definitely need to have the ability to recognize the reality of the situation. And that's obviously really important. So I just knew that I wasn't really going to get in. And I could have stayed, and they didn't want me to leave, but they said if I was going to go on trial, it wouldn't be like, I was still at an option year, and they didn't want to sign me away. It was just, hey, we'll let you go for just some time over there, and when you come back, you're our player, and we'll discuss it in the season. So yeah, I mean, it was just it felt like the right decision, and I didn't want to sit there and just for sure probably not play and just kind of wait around and I just like, hey, I'm going to go have an opportunity. Went over there, was enjoying. I really, really enjoyed Hartford. I really did. The fans were good. There's some things they're still sorting out with the club and the organization of things and some logistics and off the field stuff, but the fans, the environment, I mean, they had a great the best turf field I've ever played on. It's they had coconut shreddings, not the like black kind of tar. It was like this coconut shredding, really nice facility. I mean, I really enjoyed it there, and I think they have some cool stuff there. But yeah, with as soon as Hartford, actually a crazy story about Hartford. I flew over there. I did a red-eye flight. I flew from Sacramento to Arizona. We got to Arizona like at 12 or something, 12 in the morning. Get on the flight in Arizona. We're close to halfway to Hartford, but we're not quite halfway. And there's this guy on the plane that's just drunk, like belligerently drunk and like trying to fight people. It was out of control. It was crazy. And I'm like, dude, are you serious, man? Like, this is ridiculous. So he wouldn't calm down. They're like, all right, we're turning the plane around. I'm like, oh my God. And the next morning, that day, we were playing against Peru. Not Peru. Who do we play against? We're playing a national team. They needed a game. It was crazy.
It's just when you were still on Sac.
Yeah, well, this is when I was leaving to go on loan to Hartford.
Got it.
Well, so I'm on the flight. We turn around, so we're delayed like an hour and a half. The police come on. They come and arrest this dude. They take him off. He's yelling. It's crazy. Then I'm like, oh my God, get me out of here. So like 3 in the morning, then I'm like, okay, we finally go back to Hartford. I land at like 7:30 in the morning, and I'm just completely exhausted. And I get there, I get some food, we're chilling. We go to the game. They're like, hey, like, you do the warm-up. You're not going to play. Just do the warm-up. Okay, fine. Do the warm-up, just hanging out. And the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes or so, they're like, hey, do you want to go in? I was just like, what am I going to say? No, what the hell? So I'm like, yeah, sure. Kid you not. The first play of the game, I make a run. My center mid gets the ball, turns kind of near half field, recognize that he's going to turn, so I make an overlapping run down the line. He gets the ball, sprays it out to me. I take a touch down the line, touch down the line toward right on the end line. I just kind of little dinker chip floater far post. The guy does a bicycle kick. We score. And I'm jogging back, and the coach comes over. His name is Jimmy Nielsen. Really good, really cool guy. He's
the goalkeeper. Yeah. One of SKC.
Yeah, he's a players coach. He's a good dude, man. I really like Jimmy. And he's like, what the hell? That was your first play. And then after the game, he's giving me stuff, like, he's just like, yeah, you keep that up, you're gonna do well. It's just funny little comments. So, but yeah. So wow. It was crazy how it all happened. I just overnight in the flight and everything. So.
Jeez. And after Hartford, you were done, or what was the scenario? You went back to Sac?
Yeah, so after Hartford, Sacramento they told me that Sacramento told me they weren't going to re-sign me. And I just, it was really hard for me. I obviously really invested in the community, in the people there, and I have a lot of emotions tied to the club, but I understood. I kind of knew it was coming, and they ended up firing the head coach. I believe. I think he was fired, and they had a new staff come in, and it was kind of a big change. I think
reboot.
Yeah. And so I got back, and I had opportunities. I had a couple clubs that offered me contracts. I am going to preseason with Reno FC, and when I was in preseason with Reno, it was Ian. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting Ian's name, but Ian was there, and he was a former San Jose Earthquakes player. He's done a really good job at Reno. He's a really good coach. Really liked Reno, Ian when I was there. I was in preseason, was doing fine, and they wanted to sign me, and I was interested, but mentally I wasn't in it anymore. Something had changed. I don't know what. I just kind of felt out of love and maybe passion for the game. Maybe just the environment wasn't what I expected. Also coming from Sacramento, I think they had some really unique things about their team, and then going to a different area and just maybe not having those things was hard for me. And I was like, man, this is not what I want from maybe soccer. But I remember during training at times, like I'd be training, and I just told myself, I would be having conversations with myself like, dude, like I'm so over this, or like I'm done with soccer. Like, I don't know, it was just weird. I've never felt that way. But I also deep down, I kind of felt like, hey, maybe this is time. It's okay. Like, yeah, this is going to be hard, but I just knew, like, I think a lot of players go through this when they know it's time to like move on. And I was totally okay with it. And I've been really happy about my journey as a player. And it was a little emotional for the first couple weeks and first couple months, but I just had felt that my time was soccer, and I really gave everything I could to soccer, and it was time for me to focus on other things. But looking back at it, I don't regret my decision, and I know like the thing that I'm most proud of is every day I gave everything I possibly could, and I knew I tried to be the best like pro I could and best teammate I could, and for me that's the most like thing that it's like makes me happy as a person.
It's gratifying.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's creating a system where you're accountable to yourself. And if you can live a life that you've been accountable to yourself and you've shown up for yourself every single day, and you've created the habits and you've essentially cultivated this life that you want to live, and it sounds like you did, you can end that chapter of your life and say, you know what? I've learned the lessons. I can take these lessons to any part of my life that I want. I'm happy with how things went. Not because of maybe the situations that I was put in, but like how you dealt with every situation. And you were the one that you always felt I was in control of my destiny. I was in control of me putting the best product on the field. And I think that is something that is really important. I think when you have that lacking in your life, you have a lot of regrets. And I think for me, when I retired, it was very similar to that of like, man, I have so many regrets because a lot of things I could have and should have controlled, I didn't. Right. And now I'm like, man, I'm learning all these lessons later in life, and I wish I would have just done this a little bit differently, and maybe I would have had a better outcome. But my input was never good enough.
Right. Yeah. And those are always things you gotta kind of look back and reflect on, and maybe battle with internally. Yeah. But I think that I'm lucky and blessed to also have been in a position where I didn't have to finish because I was injured, or maybe a drastic situation. It was like, it was on my own terms. And I just, it just knew like my gut, like I just knew I was listening to my gut. And, I'm in a position now where I'm coaching and I'm really enjoying that. So I'm really happy about how things have unfolded throughout since today.
Well, Elliott, our whole group is waiting. We're going to go play some soccer right now.
I haven't played soccer in about 6 months, so this will be very interesting.
No, this podcast got me really excited now because now I want to go out there and see.
Yeah, I remember you scoring a goal in college, so I'm excited to see it right now.
Elliott, thank you again for coming on, man. We really do appreciate it. Hopefully I can get you on again, and you're a very successful coach in a year or two, and you continue to progress in the coaching ranks, because I know that anybody who is as passionate about creating the life that they want through the habits that they have, I think you are one of those people who fits that style. So I'm excited to see if maybe that rubs off on your players, and then obviously hopefully you guys get some championships with it.
Yeah, man. No, thank you for having me. It's exciting, and I just want to make sure everyone knows that out of all the goalkeepers I play with, Omar is the best goalie. And I'm not kidding. No, nothing against any of my former teammates, but just something unique about Omar and as a player on the field and just off the field. And I think it's really cool. Keep supporting his channel, man. He's doing some awesome things. He's one of the best out there.
Thank you, dude. That was awesome. I think you missed what I wrote there. Say it again.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'll throw that paper away.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.